Good afternoon, or on a lovely, at least partially sunny afternoon here in New Delhi on the day after Christmas to 2020. This is the Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia broadcast live from New Delhi. I'm Munish Gupta, I'm the secretary of the club, and this is the Foreign Correspondents Club's 29th webinar ever since the Corona lockdown began. So we've been doing lots of webinars. We bring you another very interesting and exciting webinar today. It's a discussion on a book that came out yesterday, marking a very important day in the history of India and about a very important man in the history of India and from a very important man who has written it. So now, this broadcast also, let me inform our audience, is brought to you by Foreign Correspondents Club of South Asia in collaboration with PIO-TV for the Indian diaspora and United News of India television. So you will be seen worldwide and across India. I will now hand over to Mr. S. Venkat Narayan, the president of FCC South Asia, to introduce the author today and the book that we are going to talk about.
Thank you, Munish. It's a pleasure, a warm welcome to you, Shakti Sinha. He has written this book after spending a good deal of time working with Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who was India's Prime Minister for all of three occasions, but for the first two even occasions he could not complete his term. Anyway, I think I leave everything to the readers to buy a copy of the book and read it. It is brought out by Penguin. Let me introduce Mr. Shakti Sinha. He first got to know Mr. Vajpayee in 1980 and worked with him very closely for 3.5 years in the 1990s as secretary to the leader of the opposition during 96-97 and as Vajpayee's private secretary from 98 to 99. He was also the director of the Nehru Memorial Museum and Library. He is a distinguished fellow at the India Foundation and is currently serving as the honorary director of the Atal Bihari Vajpayee Institute of Policy Research and International Studies at the MS University in Vadodara. You know, in India, very few books have been written about our leaders. And mercifully, this is one of the books written by somebody who knew one of our prime ministers very well during a very historic moment in our history. And fortunately, there have been a couple of other books by a scholar who was a journalist and now professor of political science, Dr. um, uh, Vinay. He's done a book called Jugal Bandi, which we discussed a few days ago. And he also wrote a book about Narasimha Rao called Half Lion. So it's nice to see that the current scholars and people are getting interested in a very important period of our history, the 1990s, which were guided very ably first by P.V. Narasimha Rao, who completed a 5-year term as the first non-Nehru Gandhi family prime minister of the Congress party very successfully, even though it was a coalition government, then followed by Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So it would be very interesting to know from the horse's mouth, who was eyewitness to history, the nuclear explosion Pokhran 2 and the Lahore bus trip and the confabulations between Nawaz Sharif and Vajpayee, and it's full of very interesting details. So we look forward to hearing from you, Shakti, how you came to write about it. What were your experiences? Let me also introduce my esteemed, distinguished colleagues, Dr. Wail Award and Vijay Nayak, who were very busy covering the Vajpayee years and Narasimha Rao years, and they knew both of them very personally. So it would be a pleasure that we will be having a very interesting conversation with the author, Shakti.
You have to
Unmute.
unmute yourself.
Yeah.
I unmute.
Yes, right. Done.
Where,
It is done. Gone. Oh,
You
you have
muted yourself again, Shakti. Just unmute once and leave it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
that's
That's good. That's good.
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. You can hear me, right?
yep.
Yes.
So, thank you, Venkat. Thank you, Manish. Thank you, Vail. Thank you, Vijay. It's so good to speak to you people. Venkat, very good point. I was a bystander, a fly in the wall, watching things happen. So I thought that for the sake of history, some of it should be recorded. Mine is actually a serious book. It's a very detailed, factual book. I, of course, like anybody else, have my opinions. I have my biases. But I thought that today, when people talk about the area of Atal Bihari Vajpayee, they paint a very rosy picture of how things were very good and all put together. When the reality was quite different, it was a very contested age, very controversial, lots of bitterness in politics, lots of bitterness in politics. So people say, oh, politics is bitter now, politics was bitter then also. But what I found important to record was in that short period, Vajpayee's term of 13 months extended thanks to the caretaker government by another 5 months, how in that short period, the government was just skating on thin ice, lacked cohesiveness, disparate, pulling in different directions. Every day was the last day because there was a thin majority in parliament. And yet, in terms of how India thought of itself and how the world thought of India, so much happened. At that moment, you didn't feel it. 20 years down the line, I realized why it was so momentous, which is why I wrote the book. It's a thickish book. It's called Vajpayee, the Year That Changed India. So, what changed? I think three things changed. Three very important things changed. One, with China going nuclear in 64, the blast at Loknor, and the NPT in 67, India faced a dilemma. You had a very big, powerful neighbor in your north, a nuclear weapon state. It occupied Indian territory. And negotiable from our side, China is an occupied Indian territory. And worse is that China gave nuclear and missile technology to Pakistan. So India faced two front nuclear powers. What does India do? We always said India that we have a nuclear option, but for 30 years we tried to go nuclear, we did not. Indira Gandhi did their first explosion, Buddha smiled on Buddha Purnima 1974, but then under pressure called it a peaceful nuclear explosion, PNE. Why would you do a peaceful nuclear explosion? I don't know, but we said that. We moved ahead but didn't actually. And then we had the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty in 1996-97, which effectively banned all testing other than by the nuclear powers. So again, discriminatory. So India had to, faced with this dilemma, challenge, India had to test. Vajpayee took the decision, yes, we will test. Break, complete break for consensus Indian politics. Very controversial, attacked not just by the US and China and Australia and Japan and the EU and our friends Russia, left by other, attacked domestically. Mulayam Singh said you should have tested but not announced the test. Ratwar Singh said, why test? Nuclear option we have, an option which never exercised. So Vajpayee had this tremendous amount of political courage required to do the test. Then we had sanctions, massive amount of sanctions. We were an international pariah, worse than North Korea and Iran can never be. Being a democratic part of the free world, we faced this. Vajpayee did not waver. Instead, he did the unthinkable. Second part of it, my point, he reached out to first Pakistan and then to the US. He told Pakistan, let's talk. Let us solve our insecurities together. And he called the US India's natural ally, not partner. India is our partner, not ally. Vajpayee is our ally. Tremendous. He realized that the world has changed, the Cold War was over, unipolar world, and India and the US must together because we're democracies, share values, but also because at the back of your head, the rise of China will one day threaten all democracies. Can we work together despite our differences? So, neutral option, the outreach to America, calling it an ally. Very important. And the third critical thing was, as part of the outreach to Pakistan, he goes to Lahore at tremendous domestic political cost. His government lost the majority because of that. Because it is this outreach, we could have changed history. The Pakistani army did not like this change. Did Kargil, where at the end of winter, when spring came, the Pakistani army occupied Indian military posts on the high Himalayas, 14,000 to 19,000 feet. When we realized and we hit back, Pakistan wanted a ceasefire. The world said two nuclear countries, poor, dangerous, fighting a war, have a ceasefire. Vajpayee said, yes, ceasefire. First, Pakistan withdraw. The world did not believe him. He stuck it out. Finally, the Americans realized, the world realized, even China realized that Pakistan was playing a dangerous game of two nuclear countries fighting each other. India was a good boy who decided to restrict the war to Kargil, who decided not to cross the LAC, who decided to keep it under control as much as possible. And Vajpayee could resist the world pressure on a ceasefire because he said, if we don't have a ceasefire, I have lost the war, which is what Pakistan wanted. So he could stand up to the West, stand up to the US. Unlike in 65, Shastri was forced to go for a ceasefire. Unlike 71, when the Russians told Indira Gandhi, 3 vetoes, no more, have a ceasefire. 99, Vajpayee could stand up. So when I look at these three events, the nuclear option, the outreach not just to Pakistan, important enough, very important, the outreach to the US, natural ally, and ability to say no to the world because India's supreme national security was threatened. And for a country, for a government to compromise on national security is unacceptable. Look, therefore, I call my book, and it's a very detailed book. Penguin asked me to write 65,000 words on Vajpayee's tenure. I wrote 115,000 words on 1.5 years of Vajpayee. So I felt if you understand that 1.5 years, you understand the India of today. And that is the whole point of this. I'm happy to say it's a readable book, it's a factual book. You may disagree with my understanding of it, but I think that it's something we can have a discussion about. It's something serious, it's not polemic, it's not political. And that, Venkat, is my thing.
Thank you, Shakti ji. That was very interesting, very short, crisp, and to the point. And the 4 points that you mentioned. What I mean, there must have been. It's very difficult usually to pick a title, and you
Right.
must have thought about something that. So these were the 4 primary reasons why you wrote. The title became
Yeah.
The Year That Changed India.
Yeah, absolutely, Manish. Absolutely. In fact, the title bothered me, and I made more mental effort than the book itself. Because as I said, Penguin thought I'm writing a book for the whole period. So they had to think the Vajpayee, the man, the this, the that. I said, no, that's too vast a canvas. I want a short period because it's the Hindi words Nirnayak, decisive. Decisive not in Vajpayee did, but decisive how India changed, how India looked at the world, and how the world looked at India. And which is why the title was decided. In fact, the first promos for the book from Penguin went out with another title, but I was uncomfortable with the title, so I changed the title literally when the book was going to the print to make it The Years That Changed India. It sounds very pompous. India has changed. As to India changes all the time. But I think these changes this time were very significant and they needed to be highlighted, particularly in a world where today we feel that those were the happy days of everybody backstabbing each other and working together. When the reality was those days were far more vicious, far less tolerant than today is. And I thought that is something that today's generation and even people of Manish, yours and Venkat's and Vaid's and Vijay's generation all of us seem to have very fuzzy memory, a happy memory of those days because mind plays tricks. But I think the reality is that complexity, the contestation has to be brought out. And that's what I try to do.
Oh, that's very interesting that you picked a particular period of time, you focused on it because you rightly said, for a man as large as a man and personality that Vajpayee ji was, it's a very large canvas when you start to think about writing all about Atal Bihari Vajpayee. So I agree with you. I also think that what comes out of the title is a very important period in history of India. One is reminded of the speech when India got freedom, saying India's, tryst with destiny. And I
Yeah,
think the turn of the millennium was another tryst with India's destiny as India stepped into the 21st century. And that was an important turning point for India and the 4 points that you mentioned. And I think also the book, very rightly, and you and the people who watched Vajpayee ji, the stalwarts who are going to take over after I give my little comments now, also saw in Vajpayee that some people didn't see a decisive man. Most people took him to be a light-hearted, easygoing, happy-go-lucky, jovial, social man who went out of his way and wooed Pakistan and did everything. But there was a very decisive politician, a prime minister in Atal Bihari Vajpayee. And I
yeah,
think that's something that comes out of the book too.
absolutely. In fact, people misunderstood him because he was relaxed, reality. He was prepared to listen. He was not in a rush. He was not a macho man. And yet, when he took a decision, whether it was on going to Pakistan or the nuclear issue or defending India and Kargil and not crossing the LSC or in going through the Patents Law Amendment, his own party was unhappy about, but it was required because we lost case in WTO. When he took a decision, he would not back out of it. He would discuss before, make the adjustments or compromises before, but not once a decision was taken. In that sense, as the late minister then Rangaraj Kumara Mangalam Ranga told me once, hey Shakti, your boss is the real Iron Man. Because then he stuck it out and he ensured that what was decided was implemented. So that to me also was a change, absolutely a change.
Very true, very true. Let me now bring my senior colleagues and friends into the discussion. Starting with I see Dr. Awad, all hunched up and ready to go. You like the football game here. I want to take the next comment with Shakti. Go ahead, Dr. Awad.
Thank you very much, Manish. Thank you, Venkat. Thank you, Shakti. Congratulations to you and hi,
Thank
Vijay.
you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to see you again. I'm sure that book, I haven't had a hand on the book, but I'm sure I share lots of good memory of late Vajpayee with you because I have been in India for 4 decades and I have covered all his
Exactly.
journey.
Exactly.
So I have seen him in '96. I have seen him in '98. I interviewed him in '98. I traveled with him to China, and he went to Syria. So I have a memory of him as the Prime Minister of India who have taken the international issues and brought India into the glory and respected. And I still remember his trip to China when he had talked that the world can fit both the countries together, that the world have enough space. And I think in Syria, there was a new gesture which not known so many people. The respect the Syrian people president has given to Vajpayee was shown from day one when he was in his room in the hotel, in his guest house, and he was not feeling well. And the president of Syria breached the protocol and he visited him in his guest house. So that
Yes,
was
sir.
a very, very good gesture. And I think he was remembered, and every team of Indian team was remembering him. During Bokran, yes, we knew about the test an hour after it has been done, but we have not declared it. The India have declared it, and I had interviewed him, and his interview went very well with the an Arab audience because it was translated into Arabic and it was shown in the Arab world. I think he enjoyed a very strong position, not only as a Sevak of the BGP and India. He was a very strong nationalist at heart.
Yeah.
He was very determined. He was very soft, but in his heart, in his mind, He knows what he was doing. He knows the politics. He gives space to other, where people may focus on other that they are doing the job, but actually he was himself guiding and guarding from behind. So I can understand his strength of mentality, and that's a true leadership. And that's what a leader like him can make hundreds of leaders. In fact, after his speech at the parliament when he lost election, that was the decisive speech, and where he have generated lots of sympathy and love from the public of India for the Bharatiya Janata Party. And I think he came back to power with very strong position, and he was very determined during the Kargil war and during his meeting with Musharraf. We were in Agra, so we have traveled extensively with him. I'm sure the book will be very interested to read, and I'm happy to see that our Foreign Correspondent Club have taken this issue to discuss it, not only because we are foreigner living in India and covering the international issues and covering India to the world, but I think because also of the local interest have been generated from him. Thank you very much, and look forward to hear more about the book.
And while just to add a sentence before Manish, you say, this book is called One Mountain, Two Tigers, India,
Okay.
China, and the High Himalayas. This is a book I edited, which came out earlier this year, which basically says, as you quoted Vajpayee, Asia is large enough for India and China. It's not a zero-sum game.
Exactly.
So, the need to understand this is so important that often people forget that and get carried away.
Absolutely.
I couldn't agree with you more because, Venkat and I and some of us were on that trip with Rajiv Gandhi to China way back in 1988.
88, the famous visit.
The famous visit. And, it was pretty clear then and has been very clear since, at least, that both these countries will have to find their space in Asia and the world. There is no
Absolutely.
zero-sum game, as you said. And Vajpayee ji very eloquently put it out. And people would probably have not thought of it at that time from a right-wing party and a BJP prime minister, but I think he set the stage and tone for a long time to come. Let me move this discussion now to our dear friend Mr. Vijay Naik. Vijay ji, you can unmute yourself for the question.
Vijay, अपन सहमत है ना? You agree with what I say?
Vijay, he's come back.
Please come back.
Just unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, Vijay.
Vijay is sitting in a car, I think. Vijay, you are muted. Can't hear you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. He's trying to unmute himself.
So let me practice my Marathi on Vijay. Vijay, we can't hear you. Vijay, we can't hear you. You're muted. You are muted, Vijay.
Anil, is there a way for you to unmute him? We'll try our IT way. We can unmute him.
Yeah. No, Vijay, we can't hear you.
No, but maybe it's also a little issue of Venkat. Let's move it to you, and we'll come back to Vijay once Vijay is back in action.
Yeah, Shakti, the people who covered India during the 1990s, wasn't it a nightmare? Every day you have, the Zarinas of Bengal and Tamil Nadu, Jayalakshmi and Mamata Banerjee, Mulayam Singh Yadav, Lalu Yadav, Sharad Pawar, Arjun Singh, you name it. There are so many people who are dying to become prime ministers of India without possessing the necessary qualities for that. And every day, you are never sure the government is going to last for the next 24 hours or disappear and all that. And the BJP was an untouchable at that point of time. And what is interesting is that Mr. Vajpayee made it a touchable party. Not only that, when Narasimha Rao handed over the key, Samagri Tayar hai, you go ahead and explode the nuclear device. And
Right.
And that manner, the Americans, the CIA had no clue what was happening in Pokhran 2, and the way he did, and so many things. I mean, it's looking back, while I was going through the pages of your book, I relived that nightmarish period of time in our history. I said, my God, only a man who was, seemingly low key, but with his hand in a velvet glove, as you rightly call him, and with that kind of a temperament, sensibility, and determined to see India's place on the global arena. It was absolutely remarkable. And looking back, after so many years, I said, my God, what a magic trick he performed. These two underestimated gentlemen, Narasimha Rao and Vajpayee,
Correct.
driving India through the 1990s
Yeah.
is absolutely, history will remember them forever. Don't you think, Vijay
Absolutely.
Nayak, if you can unmute yourself, come and speak. Unmute, yeah.
Vijay, muted. We lost him again, but he was saying something, I thought.
Yeah, I think he's having a little bit of a bandwidth issue,
Because
but
Vijay is sitting in a car. Vijay is
yeah.
sitting, I admire him. He's a very fine person. He's sitting in a car and trying to talk, so I can understand his frustration. But I get
But,
Venkat's point very strongly. Horrible days. No, Vijay can't hear you. Vijay, you're muted.
unmute. No, unmute. You are not unmuted.
Where
Anyway,
it
you
is
go
written,
speak. Shakti,
where
you
it is
speak.
Can you speak to Vijay on the phone?
Yeah,
Vijay being a veteran,
I'll ask
Vijay
Anil
being
to
a
speak to him. I'll ask
please,
Anil
because
to speak to him.
Vijay
go
being a
ahead.
veteran knows so much. It'd be a pleasure to listen to him and answer. Vijay,
Just 1 second. You go ahead, Shakti.
I think
I'll
he must
arrange.
be his screen
I'll
is
arrange.
closed.
You go ahead and speak.
the point I was making when he Vijay, yes, we're almost
I
at
can
Vijay.
tell you
Go
Vijay,
to the corner.
Sanga,
Can you
Vijay
hear me
Sanga.
now?
yeah. Correct?
No, he's muted again. I think
No,
your
no, the
control is
problem is
muting
that
Vijay again.
no, the problem is that he is using a phone which is very sensitive. As soon as you touch it and go, if it double clicks, it catches your mute again.
Can you
So,
hear me now?
Yes. Correct.
Sanga. Muted again. Vijay, muted again. Something is going wrong. I feel so bad.
Press only once on the mute. Press only just gently. Yeah.
Yes.
Sir.
you know what I would recommend is Vijay. We are going to be talking for a while, so if you can get to a place where you can set up a laptop or this one properly, then we'll be able to hear you.
Manish,
Otherwise,
can
this way
Vijay
we
speak
won't.
on the mobile? Can Vijay
Yes.
speak on the mobile to one of you and you relay?
What I suggest that Vijay, you go phono. Go phono. No need for the video. Just go on phone. Just go on phone. Close your video.
No, his setting on his phone is such that we are hearing him back.
Yeah, but if he
Right.
talk on phone, we can still hear him better without being in the picture.
Okay, now
Absolutely.
Okay, so all of you guys continue because people are watching us, and I will fix what we have to do with Vijay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. Can I ask a question, Shakti? Vijay, unmute yourself. I think that's the only way. Sorry, Vijay.
Vijay can hear you.
Yeah, I think there's a problem with Vijay.
Get out of the car. Get out of the car. Go outside and see if you can work.
While go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to know those moments when he, in 1996, when he had been in the parliament and he went home. I mean, what did you have a meeting with him at that moment? Because he was speaking his heart out, you know.
Yeah. In fact, while, one interesting thing was, immediately within a day of sworn in, he knew that the government would not sustain itself. Because the BJP at 160, with allies it had hit 170, pull another 175, unit 271. Numbers were humongous, and by then the United Front had been formed. Not Jyoti Basu, not VP Singh Devagowda would be the head. The Congress agreed to support it. So you knew that the government would not last. And therefore, the speaker's election you conceded, allowed Sangma to become. But the point was, Vajpayee had to be there in parliament, using parliament to tell the country that today the pole position, anybody who follows Formula One racing would understand that the pole position in Indian politics was now the BJP. So you would have to deal with the BJP. You cannot pretend that the BJP is untouchable, that the BJP does not matter. And fortunately, and because you were able to do it not just to parliament but otherwise, by the time the next election came, when the Congress deposed of one more government that it set up, the government of I.K. Gujral, after deposing the government of Devagowda, that in Bengal the Congress broke, Mamta joined the BJP alliance, NDA. In Odisha, Biju Patnaik party, BJD was formed. Naveen broke off with Janata Dal and joined. In Tamil Nadu, the ADMK of Amma, the MDMK of Vaiko, and the PDMK of Dr. Ramdas came together. You had the Shiv Sena. In Karnataka, the Lok Shakti, which had been thrown Janata Dal, Ramkrita Hegde, became a party. You already had the Samta Dal, you had the Shiv Sena, and now the Akalis formally became your alliance partners, and then the National Conference in Kashmir. So suddenly the BJP untouchable became a centrist party in terms of the spectrum of Indian politics. So even though Vajpayee lacked the numbers in 96, he had to stay in parliament, face parliament, and get his message across. See, those who think we're intellectuals, we're very rational. But politics is not just rational, it is rational, but politics is rational plus the need to engage people and get your message across. And that is something we fail to understand. Which politicians, which we laugh at, actually are smarter than us, understand the need to engage people. So in that sense, the 96 government was very important. You don't have hope in hell in surviving, but you need to establish, like Mr. Hamilton, British driver, what's his name, whatever, the pole position of F1. So that is very important. Vijay, can you hear us?
Try to unmute now, Vijay. Try to unmute now.
Single touch.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Let us mute all ourselves. All of ourselves mute ourselves except Vijay. Let him speak. Let us try this.
While has a point. Let's all mute and hear Vijay.
Yeah, so go ahead, mute yourself, Shakti. Let me tell him, please. Vijay, you unmute and speak. We are all going to be muted. You unmute.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Believe this, yeah. Listen, sorry, I think something is not right there.
Yeah.
Let's get on with the discussion.
Yeah.
While you have anything to say, ask a question or something.
Well, let's carry on. We will go on with this.
I have a question before you get into the real news. Shakti, you seem to have seen him closely. You've definitely, mentioned a few things which people will get to know through your book. That you not only were an astute observer, but you got to know the politician and the politicians around him in the real years of Vajpayee. You know how he struggled, but he still, sort of got over things. Tell me, like they say, all the president's men, who were all the Vajpayee's men amongst his peers, politicians, opposition, aides, officers? Because he was a very affable, very gregarious, very personable person, and that insight you have to share with us.
A very good point, buddy. One good thing about Vajpayee, contrary to most Indian politicians, was in his own party, there was no Vajpayee faction. He was very careful in not knowing himself through other people. In other words, while there were some people he got along very well with, just one thing as an example, at different time only Bharat Joshi, not always. In the government, say Brajesh Mishra, officers like Ashok Saikia, others. The fact is, he always kept his doors open to others to come and brief him. To me, that is the hallmark of a true politician, a successful politician, who is not bound, trapped by the courtiers. You know? So, as I said, he has great regard for Jaswant Singh. Did he agree with him all the time? No. So, in that sense, a successful politician is not defined by the others.
But we the other day we heard about a book. We actually heard from the author about the book on Jugalbandi, the Jugalbandi between Vajpayee and Advani. We heard his version of it. What about your version of it?
Vinay has done outstanding work. I'm a big fan of Vinay's work, Halfline, and now this. Tremendous amount of research Vinay has done. And in fact, in my own book, in the acknowledgements, I've actually said read Vinay's book. Important. Where I disagree with Vinay, it's an intellectual disagreement, is that Vinay has relied on certain respondents who may have exaggerated their own importance. In that sense, therefore, I am the key person for Vajpayee. I think that's unfair to Vajpayee. Vajpayee did not. He used not used in the bad sense of the term, but a prime minister or the head of a party or the head for a big leader cannot be into touch with everybody, and therefore you need mediums. But he ensured that he met different people, and nobody could, in that sense, other than very close, say Brajesh Mishra became very important. But even Brajesh privately said, I do not do anything without getting boss's clearance, which people did not understand. But that takes some time to have a working relationship. Vajpayee disagreed with Brajesh many times, overruled him, but a team is a team. So therefore, in that sense, other people have written books, how they were important in decision making. I'm a bit skeptical because, as I said, Vajpayee was very open to ideas, listened to people. The patent bill, technical bill. We are losing us in WTO. The old BJP Jansang view was forget the world. But when you're trading, 40% of the GDP is trade, import and export. You can't ignore the world. How does one find a balance? Vajpayee heard at everybody. When he realized that the option was compliance with WTO or not, he said compliance with WTO. That ended the argument. So nobody in his closest team could say, I got this decision done on large issues. Small appointments here and there, fine. People could say, I got it done. I'm not into that because Vajpayee was a man of the world. He was not a god. He was not a saint. He was not a Mahatma, a successful politician who had India's interest at heart. So therefore, close team, inner circle, kitchen cabinet, a little difficult to believe ex post. I can claim I got it done, but it's just me speaking. So I'm very skeptical about such claims about being part of any inner circle.
I would agree with you because not me personally as much, but my parents have been very, very close to Atalji for a very long period of time. And I just wanted to hear it from you because I've always heard that from friends, family, but not so much from somebody who was in the political circle. Venkat,
Venkat, before you. Venkat, before you, you're muted. You're muted, but just to answer, because Manish mentioned his family's connection. You know, Vajpayee, like an old-time politician, went for lunch, 1:30, 2 o'clock. Lunch, rested for an hour, came back at 4 o'clock. Right? Fine. I was there. I could not afford to take that rest. Right? I needed to read up the files, prepare for it. A certain senior officer would meet me once in a while. Shakti, what are you doing? My senior, I may be PS to PM. ऐसा सर कुछ नहीं. Can I just come across? आ जाइए. Chat with me and go away. And it happened once a month, twice a month for some time. Till somebody equally senior asked me, does so and so meet the PM very often? I said, no, not at all. So does he meet you very often? I said, yes. He said, okay, that answers the question. कहाँ है साहब? PMO गए हैं. मतलब PMO में किससे मिलने गए हैं? So I shall not mention names. I shall not mention names because I shall take it to the graveyard with me. But Manish, this is the point. You know, perceptions are important. Sometimes they are not truthful. Venkat, over to you.
Yeah.
very right.
Shakti, I have a couple of things to check with you. One is that, at least the way Vinay Sitapati puts it, basically Brijesh Mishra and Major Jaswant Singh and Vajpayee would sit, decide the day's agenda at breakfast table, and then go and announce the decisions and so on. And Mr. Advani was not involved in these things, and he felt left out. Would you like to say something about that? Number one. Number two, Mr. Vajpayee seems to have had problems with Murli Manohar Joshi, Balraj Madhok, Subramanian Swamy, and one or two other people. Was it the chemistry not right, or some personal issues? What exactly was the problem? Because Jayalalitha wanted Subramanian Swamy to become the finance minister, and Vajpayee simply refused to do so, along with so many other unreasonable demands like dismissing Karunanidhi and so on. So you have worked with Vajpayee closely. What is your take
Right.
on these issues? Thank you.
One, of course, no. In fact, the major point was often that Brajesh Mishra and Jaswant Singh had different points of view, and Vajpayee had to reconcile it. So it's a rare occasion where Brajesh Mishra and Jaswant Singh had the same point of view. Both were right in their own way, but the Prime Minister needed to hear out both. So deciding in advance, which is why I said Vinay is an outstanding work, but some of the respondents have not been responsible in telling him the right thing, So that problem is always there in any kind of system. The other was it was never personal, in the sense that if it was personal, would Vajpayee agree to the BJP allying with the Jayalalitha in 2004 and losing the elections? No. Swamy was not important enough individually. But would a prime minister forming a government allow somebody else to tell him who his home minister was, who his finance minister was, who his defense minister was? The answer is no. Prime Minister like Vajpayee, not being Devagowda or Gujarat, both good people, both actually very good people, but they simply didn't have the stature that Vajpayee had in that. So Jayalalitha could not tell him whom to make the finance minister. Could insist on getting her slice of the cake, but up to a point only. And therefore, with Balraj Madhok, with others, it was more ideological. It was more the way parties should move, pro-America, anti-America, pro-big business, pro-capitalism, open markets, or have controls. So it was more ideological and in terms of how the party would do, less as an individual. Though, of course, being an individual, you have likes and dislikes, which you carry to extremes at times. But as I said, which is why my book is different, because I don't think so. Individuals are important, But individuals without the context, you can get a wrong understanding. That is my limited point.
We have a question for you from another senior colleague of ours, Vichitra Sharma. She wants
Mhm.
to. She's asking what finally happened. What broke the camel's back on falling out with Jayalalitha?
Jayalalitha reached a point where nobody could listen to her. She wanted her own finance minister? No.
Yeah.
She wanted bifurcate finance ministry, make a separate department of revenue? No. We'll have your personal MOS, but under the finance minister. She wanted change of lawyers? Fine. Lawyers were fighting her against her for the government against her income tax. Okay. She wanted some changes in law. Some was possible, others were not. But ultimately, she wanted Karnataka dismissed, which was a no. So, Vichitra, that was the issue. That if Vajpayee had to continue as Prime Minister, he could not agree to this. If he continued the Prime Minister, he was no Prime Minister. He was doing things that were completely wrong. So, it's a catch-22 situation. And I'm glad that the government fell on this issue rather than anything else. This was an issue which said that yes, a politician wants power, but at what cost? So I think that was important.
What in Vajpayee's years were? What was the position? I mean, a lot of people have talked about Mr. Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister Narendra Modi, status and stature and goings on during Vajpayee's time. What, in your
Yeah,
opinion, was this?
Gujarat BJP had a major problem between Vaghela and Keshubhai Patel. When it was sorted out, Mr. Vajpayee sorted it out. He went to Ahmedabad twice, got sorted out. Part of the deal was Narendra Modi would move out of Gujarat, because seen as close to Vaghela. And this is where Vinay gets it wrong. Keshubhai wanted him out, not Vaghela, the other way around, Vinay also gets it wrong on Murli Manohar Joshi. Venkat, I didn't answer you. Vajpayee never had problems with Murli Manohar Joshi. So, Joshi always felt that he was being not given enough importance, but he never once opposed Vajpayee. So, in this thing, Mr. Modi was sent out of Gujarat, sent to Himachal Pradesh as Prabhari, state in charge. The BJP had been a okay party, but had lost his vision. Mr. Modi was able to build up the party tremendously in a short while, traveling everywhere. In the assembly elections of 98, BJP and Congress were neck to neck. Somebody died. Who could form a government? Mr. Modi was able to win over Sukhram's 4-member Himachal Congress Party, Himachal Pradesh Vikas Congress, as it was called, and they formed a government. Modi was then seen as successful, then brought to the BJP headquarters of Prabhari, General Secretary, did very good work, organized rallies in Tamil Nadu, and in the after the Kargil war, helped in putting tremendous sanctions in Pakistan, because he could rally the Indian American community, which acted as a political community for the first time. So in the period that my book covers it, Mr. Modi is not Prime Chief Minister of Gujarat. He is a loyal General Secretary, really working hard to strengthen the party. Later on, from what I read, I wasn't in India. Yes, after the Gujarat thing, Mr. Vajpayee probably felt that Modi should go. But the moment the party in Bombay and Goa stood up and said, down to the worker, not just Mr. Advani and the leaders, down to the whole general body, felt Modi had to be defended. Mr. Vajpayee, as a loyal party man, a very loyal party man, went along with that. So whatever his personal feeling that whether Mr. Modi should be there or not, once the party said no, Modi cannot be sacrificed, Vajpayee went along with that. So it's a complex issue between him and the party, and that's where Mr. Modi comes in, which we must understand, and not make simplistic solutions about plus, for, against, etc.
Do you think Mr. Modi as Prime Minister has given Mr. Vajpayee his due since coming?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are different people, different generations, different experiences, different styles, maybe even different in terms of policy making. absolutely. But the larger vision of an India, which is a growing India, a power in the world, an India where religion is not a political factor but a personal factor, loyalty to the motherland is there, Article 370 goes, Uniform Civil Code comes in, etc. I think they agreed. The devil is in the detail. Maybe Vajpayee would have gone about it differently, but Vajpayee at best had 180 MPs in Parliament, at best, Lok Sabha. Mr. Modi had 282 and 303. So, in that sense, if we don't keep this in factor in mind, maybe we'll misjudge the situation. As it said in Parliament, ये हमारा agenda है, संख्या नहीं है. I don't have the damn numbers. And in a democracy, numbers count. So, we have to be mindful of that.
Well,
Can I raise a question here? I just, sorry. Shakti, there are 2-3 issues to make Mr. Vajpayee could be the best Prime Minister of India. I mean, there are certain issues where we have to deal during his tenure, where it was one on Kashmir, which he has, Jammu and Kashmir, he had done the Insaniyat issue, and he had a very famous that even the people of Jammu and Kashmir accepted him as a leader of the BJP at that time, and they were able to talk to him. And the second part is also you talked about is the Gujarat. You think handling of Gujarat, if we look back at handling of Gujarat and handling of Kandahar, after the hijacking of the Indian Airlines, that was also during his tenure. Was it really, did he had so much to say on these 2 issues, or was it really just he left it to the intelligence and to the other people to deal with it?
While it's a tough one to answer, one, of course, Kandahar is inevitable. The moment you allowed IC-814 to leave Amritsar airport, you lost the battle there. So it was a systemic failure, which as Prime Minister he must own up to. So in that sense, as Prime Minister, in an open, and people don't understand, in this damn country, nothing is a secret. So whatever a government does or thinks of doing is out in the open. So that does constrain the freedom of action of the elected executive. And this is something, that's why I keep telling people, look at the context, look at the context. None of them are functioning in isolation, none of them are functioning in a vacuum. And these constraints must be understood. Was he the perfect Prime Minister? Absolutely no. Could he have been better? Yes. But it also had a lot worse. Politics is the art of the possible, is the art of the compromise. Compromise is not a dirty word. Compromise just means, can you and I, despite our differences, work together? In the bargain, I'll have to drop something which is dear to me, because I want you, while to drop something dear to you also. That's how we work. And therefore, post 20 years, you and I can sit back and pass judgments, which a scholars should pass judgment. I'm not saying judgment passing is bad, but I must, back of the mind, also understand, yeah, but at that moment, could it have been different? So, it's a very tricky. So I know I'm not a satisfactory answer, because I do not have a satisfactory answer to your very valid question. How do you reconcile seemingly opposing things? Something you believe in, something which is happening, and some of the systems want to happen. So, that is, I wish I had a better answer, but to my limited understanding, this is the kind of messy compromises that make for us,
I agree.
It's messy, it's not comfortable, it's not clean, it's not ideal. So I'm accepting that. I completely agree with your point of view.
Not well valid.
It was interesting that when Khrushchev visited India in the late 50s,
55, Bulgarian and Khrushchev, yes.
That's right. And Nehru made it a point to invite Vajpayee to the dinner and introduce Vajpayee to Khrushchev as the future Prime Minister of India. And Khrushchev remarked, "What is he doing here? In my country, he would have been shot dead," and that kind of stuff.
This is why I said Vinay should not have listened to people. Vajpayee, Nehru merely said, this is an up and coming politician. Nehru
Yes.
would not call anybody on God's earth as the future Prime Minister of India. You know, Vajpayee confirmed this to me. That's the famous statement Vajpayee called Indira Gandhi Durga. He said in Parliament, he said, "You are quoting me." He said, "I got worried. Maybe I said it, I've forgotten it." He said, "I checked up all the records. I never said it." So, you know, but the stories are built. Once stories get built, people believe them. All Nehru said, this is a young and upcoming politician, which was good for Nehru to say to a very young parliamentarian, the leader of a four-man party in a house of then 489. Four members don't count. So that is very gracious of Nehru. Vajpayee was grateful to Nehru for that. But he never called him a future prime minister.
Shakti, another thing is that uh, Vajpayee, he was a true nationalist. You know, he believed in secularism, and he made it clear that until the BJP has the numbers in parliament, there is no question of moving forward on Ayodhya 370, so on and so forth. Now, the point is 20% of the people in our country are not Hindus. And a series of attacks in the name of love jihad and people keeping beef in refrigerators and Dalits getting bashed up. This is causing a lot of anxiety across the globe about whether India is getting Hinduized. Hinduism is not such a closed mind part. It's not a religion, I say. It's a way of living and all that. Are you worried about these things? And if Vajpayee had been the Prime Minister of India at this point of time, how do you think he would have behaved? You remember how Graham Staines, how he dealt with it, and the attacks on Dalits, in Bihar during his prime ministership, and Rabri Devi was the chief minister. All that.
Correct.
What,
Correct.
what do you think Vajpayee would have done, at this point of time?
Venkat, to quote, are you a Tamilian or a Malayali or a Telugu? What are you?
Neither. Telugu.
Telugu. Okay. I shall use a Tamil expression which says Adu Sari Allah, which is you're wrong. Why? I tell you why. One, of course, is that in the last two elections, the largest number of Dalit votes have gone to the BJP. So BJP is very conscious of the Dalit, not just the vote, but the community. It has propped up Dalit heroes and lower OBC heroes all over North India. So BJP's bashing of Dalits is a myth. It's not correct. There will be individual acts of violence. They're terrible, which must be put down, completely put down with. Individual acts should be stopped. If there are excesses of any government, BJP otherwise should be stopped. I don't think so on that in agreement. But as you rightly said when you started speaking, Vajpayee was attacked in parliament, a hidden agenda. And he said, no, either Ayodhya, Northeast 70, not Uniform Civil Code is a hidden agenda. He said, it is in our manifesto. Where is it hidden? But having formed the NDA and having signed up the National Agenda of Governance, because we lack the number, Sankhya nahi hai, we had to put it away. He says, we are not, implication is, we don't have the numbers, so we're waiting. If we have the numbers, we shall do it. So it is the famous Deng Xiaoping line, hide your capabilities, bide your time. But that means that when the time comes, you shall act. So as I said, the nuancing may be different, the methods would be different, but the Vajpayee was assistant to Shyam Prasad Mukherjee, who went to Kashmir to fight against a separate constitution, 370, a separate flag, a separate head of government. The governor was called Sadr Riyasat, not called governor, Sadr Riyasat. He went to Kashmir to fight that, lost his life. Vajpayee was deeply scarred by that, and he did not want 370 to continue, but understood that in a democracy, you need to carry people with you. You needed 270 in the lower house. So, it's as I said again, it's a complex thing. Vajpayee is different from Modi ji, absolutely. Atalji and Modi ji are very different. But in many ways, being part of the RSS, growing up in the RSS, there are certain things they understand. Their anti-conversion, their idea of Hindu is not religious but cultural and social. India as a motherland, that means you're a Hindu. Whatever be your forms of worship, they felt religion is a bad one because none of us are religious in the Abrahamic sense, which while we'll understand. We are not religious. In the same house, you can have a Vaishnavite and a Shaivite and a non-believer. They're not religions. They're methods of worship only. They felt secularism is not anti-religion, which is in the West. The French concept of LACITE, again, a French word which I'm sure Weil will know better than me how to pronounce it. Indian secularism, he says, has to be respect for all, not anti-belief. He says we are a people who are deeply spiritual and belief. We doesn't mean Hindus alone. Hindus, Jains, and Muslims and Sikhs and part everybody. Religion cannot be used to divide people. So in that sense, there are certain things in common. The certain things are different. So we have to understand the time, the personalities, and obviously some people are more aggressive, some are less aggressive, some are upfront aggressive, some are upfront not so aggressive. But so I would be yes, they're different, but yes, there are a lot of similarities also between the two.
Shakti ji, Vajpayee ji was perceived by many in many different ways. To everybody, he was sort of had an aura, multiple auras, I can say sometimes. What was Vajpayee ji's relationship with the opposition, and what did he really think of his line of action with the opposition? His opposition.
One, of course, his biggest embarrassment was he stood up to speak in parliament as prime minister and referred to the other side as prime minister, because he was so used to being in the opposition all his life. He understood the fact that in democracy, option is important. As leader of opposition in parliament, he told a foreign dignitary, the then Secretary General of the Commonwealth, he was a Nigerian gentleman called Chief somebody or the other, Google will tell you the name. He told him, I believe in one principle. In a democracy, the opposition must have its say, and the government must have its way. If in a democracy the government does not have its way, it is not a democracy. So listen to the opposition, fine, you should. End of the day, it's the government's responsibility to do what it thinks it is right. So in that sense, yes, accommodate, but do not be blackmailed. Nobody has a veto power. And that is the essence of parliamentary democracy.
Is that what gave him that image and perception of being a very liberal guy, whereas he was as fervent a nationalist or as big a BJP pitcher as anybody else?
Absolutely. But in those days, if you read my book, in the beginning and in last chapter, differently as Mr. Vajpayee is from Mr. Modi, the language used by a lot of people were exactly the same.
Same.
How do you afford to be so lazy in not analyzing things properly? I don't understand, So, liberal to whom? Those days, Advani was the villain, Vajpayee was good.
Yeah.
Then, Advani becomes a good man and this man becomes a bad guy. Excuse me. Of course, those days were first abusing Vajpayee also. So, decide for yourself, Mapdand. Tell us what are your criteria for judging me. You can't change the criteria each time. So unfortunate, yeah.
You must have worked with Vajpayee when the then Prime Minister Narasimha Rao invited Vajpayee to lead the Indian delegation to Geneva, where Pakistan was trying to raise, the Kashmir issue on the UN, High Commission of the Human Rights Council.
Yeah.
Tell me, I mean, it's a very interesting kind of decision taken by Narasimha Rao. Why do you think he did that? And of course, Vajpayee did total justice to it by taking the Pakistanis and the whole world by surprise. And he acted like a statesman. Can you tell us something about how the decision was made?
Venkat, he was an old-fashioned politician who believed that internally we'll fight with each other, against the world, we have to combine ourselves, So we will not wash our dirty linen in public. We will not attack my government in public. One. Two, we fervently believe Kashmir is at the heart of the Indian identity. If Kashmir goes to Pakistan with a Muslim majority, we have no right to exist. So he was very convinced about that. And therefore, he was more than happy to go to Geneva. And Narasimha Raw's brilliance in understanding that at that he had to send a message that by sending Vajpayee leader of opposition, it is conveying that India is one on this issue. We are not divided on it. A sitting minister, serving minister Ghulam Nabi Azad went as number 2 in the mission. The leader of opposition leading a team is a minister in office, which in parliamentary system is a perversion, but that's a formality, legality. The reality is India had to put up one picture. And I think as a patriot, as somebody who loved this country dearly, Vajpayee had no option not only to go along, but to go along happily. I mean, if this was a national cause, it was not Congress party or the BJP or this and that. And I think that is important, that we should be careful in how we deal with the world. We should be really careful in how we deal with the world. Because they would love to cause divisions within our ranks.
By the way, that was Salman Khurshid, not Ghulam Nabi Azad, who was the Minister of State.
No. In fact, I'll correct you why I'm saying Salman Khurshid, of course, Ghulam Nabi went as also number 2, because the Pakistanis had the slogan in Geneva, ki naam hai Azad magar hai to Ghulam. So, but the idiots that the Pakistanis are, the bad Muslims that the Pakistanis are, the name Ghulam Nabi in Arabic is one. It's not two, it's joined. Whose Ghulam are you? I'm the Ghulam of the Nabi. Who's the Nabi? The Prophet himself. I mean, idiots. Azad is the takalluf is added to the name. His name is Ghulam Nabi. I am the Ghulam of the Nabi. What nonsense is this? Which is why I remember. Salman Khurshid, of course, was Minister of State. But Ghulam Nabi was a cabinet minister for some department or the other. He works in housing or whatever,
Okay. Very interesting.
I think, can I have a final question before we close the session? I think we crossed the limited line. But Shakti, I just have an issue on the economy, because we have to link it to the contemporary problem of rural India, especially the farmers. Do you think Vajpayee time, when he took over from Narasimha Rao as the economic reformers, have done something in rural India, would have been done in a similar fashion now with the Prime Minister doing for the farmers?
All parties, including the Congress, the Bharatiya Kisan Union, all of them have said that the farm laws are bad, anti-farmer, need to be revoked. All of them, right?
Yeah.
The real farmers are people who own less than an acre of land. The reality of India is that you have too many small and marginal farmers who can't take benefit of technology and credit and marketing, But the big people can. I'm nothing against the big people. Vajpayee's thing of rural roads was precisely to create greater economic opportunity in the rural areas. Vajpayee's government could never take on the farm laws of the Agricultural Produce Marketing Committee, because that was simply beyond them in terms of their ability, their cohesiveness. Maybe it would have differently. But the CPM today, who fights with the so-called farmers in Kerala, are not prepared to have the same mandis, because Kerala's economy depends on the plantation sector, where you will not want to bind the plantation owners to selling only in the APMC, because they are powerful people growing cardamom and pepper and rubber and things like that. The whole Kerala Congress lobby. So, it's political. I'm nothing against being political. In a democracy, economics is political. I find with you. Maybe it could have been done differently, but the Congress Party's manifesto said you must change the APMC Act to allow farmers to sell who they want to sell. So it is a bit of a problem of marketing, packaging, but also problem that I don't like the messenger. And that cannot be answered. If I don't like your face, It won't change ever. I may like your argument, I don't like your face. That is not something which can actually be solved. So in that sense, I think, and this is post Vajpayee, of course, I think that we need more light and less heat on the farm issues. Maybe there are points to both sides. I'm not saying the other side is completely wrong. They're not Khalistanis. Some maybe they're fishing in the troubled waters. Maybe they're, let's find out what the issues are. So I think in
Absolutely.
that sense, let's not jump and let the leftist and the others take over the agenda. I would be most uncomfortable with a leftist pushing the agenda for the people whom they call, I don't call them, whom they call the kulaks. So, it's a unnecessary controversy where unfortunately the heat is so much that the light is getting blurred.
Before you close, Venkat, I'm going to say I'll have one final word on top of Dr. Awad's word with Shakti. Um, Very, very, very beautifully put, Shakti. I'm now going to buy and read your book because this discussion has been very interesting. But tell me something. Knowing him that closely, the man that you've written about, and I think people should write about statesmen like Vajpayee, and even later once Advani is gone, or right now or Modi, when people really get to work with people closely and
Yeah,
understand the person and personality closely, people should not do second and third hand reporting on people, then they can't do justice, especially to
correct.
such larger than life figures. There's too much to
Yeah.
their life and larger. But tell me something, all that is happening in the last 6 years now, that the NDA is 303 and 282, as you said, finally is something that was pent up and building up and was also the agenda even when they had their first government during Vajpayee's time. Isn't that true?
Yes, in some matters, yes. All these ideas were there. They were not ready for germination. They were there. Maybe they would have germinated. Again, I said maybe they were germinated differently. And maybe there were differences in the nuances and the details. But I think and therefore the way of doing things, of carrying people or sending the message across and being seen as listening. Maybe some of that can be nuanced. I agree with you. But I agree with you also that the larger agenda remained the same. This was the agenda evolving for 100 years. See, people think of sprints. Here, they're happy to lose an election if it meant compromising on core beliefs. So, if you don't understand that, you will never be able to counter them. If you want to seriously counter them, understand their strengths. Don't go for your stereotypes. Stereotypes are very good, but they are lazy, they don't explain things. Understand their agenda, understand what they're trying to do, and then work about it. So, in that sense, yes, it was building up. Yes, there are differences, but if you don't look to what they're trying to do and how they're trying to do, this is no more a movement of the elite. It is a genuine movement. Lots of Dalits, lots of OBCs, much less upper caste pushing this agenda. If you don't understand how India is changing, then you are in trouble. And therefore, I feel that, you rightly say, don't make distinctions where distinctions are not relevant anymore. Try to understand the changes of India today, anticipate them. This is not, I mean, I tell people I was born in 56. Between 56 and 2000, 44 years, and over 2000 to next 20 years. This 20 years has seen more change than the first 44 years. That's the reality. You remember Bajaj scooters? Great.
Yes.
HMT watches? HMT watches. My God, that India's forgotten. Dead. People had cards saying PP, पड़ोसी का number. I don't have a telephone number. My neighbor's number. Please call me there. Oh, भाई साहब बगल वाले घर से बुला लो जी. I mean, we have changed. We have changed. Understand that. And that is why if we don't understand that, then I think we'll find ourselves addressing the wrong questions. You know?
So we saw the red book cover, then the blue book cover. Which one is next? Green?
That's a lovely one. This is very important because
Yeah.
we live in a world which is changing. Take China seriously. Don't panic about China. Do not panic about China. But if you don't understand China, this is not the. Deng Xiaoping said, bide your time, hide your capabilities. He did not say, I'm going to follow the West. He never promised to become another America. You thought he'll become America. That's not his fault. You thought the BJP would do this. They never said that. Please understand where they're coming from. China is here to stay, learn to live, accommodate, adjust, defend yourself. You cannot wish it away. Similarly, those who don't like the BJP, and I'm not saying you're wrong, you have a point of view. The BJP is here. How do you learn to deal with the BJP? This is my point. You cannot wish them away. Wishing them away will not help you face tomorrow, whether it's
Yeah.
China, BJP, or whatever. This is the point. So I have a next book coming up, which is very different, but it's halfway done.
Okay. We'll keep a tab on you. We'll keep a tab on you. Thank you, and I'll now request Mr. Venkat Narayan, the president of FCC, to have the final closing words, statement, and thank you.
Shakti, thank you. That was a very, very interesting discussion. While thank you. As Deng Xiaoping said, don't worry about the color of a cat, so long as it catches the mice.
Nice.
And bide your time. I think we need to bide our time, and we ought to learn and understand more about China. Our understanding of China is very, very inadequate, and this could be one of the reasons why we have these complications. I do hope that instead of indulging in pointless jingoism, let us try to understand our next door neighbor. Only, if China and India join together, we can take on the world, and the time is now. It was very wonderful to listen to what you had to say about Vajpayee and that particular era, and it was very nice hearing while so in reaction as a foreigner who has made India his home for the last 40 years. And of course, Munish contributing his bits. Pity we missed Vijay because of
Vijay.
technical things, but we hope when you do your next book and we do another webinar or a discussion, things will be better.
No, next time we do a physical discussion and discuss the ghost of FCC.
Lovely. That would be. Thank you so very much, everybody. Have a great
Thank
evening.
you.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you all.
Lovely
Thank
talking.
you.
Lovely talking
Lovely.
to you.
And let's
Lovely.
close